man. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, man, no worries. Once we saw everything that was going on, I was like, we got to get Coach G on here.
Oh man, that's
We got
awesome.
to get him on
That's
here.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
All right, so we're gonna just jump right into it and ask you some serious questions here.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. How you doing, Shane?
I'm good, man. Thanks.
Good. Good. Good to see you.
All right, so my first question would be: Is how old were you when you started BMX racing?
Okay. I started back in the '80s, and believe it or not, I was already, phew, I was 12 going on 13, but I had been riding in the neighborhood for years, and it was interesting because I had never seen BMX. I didn't know BMX even existed. This is interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because I was the only kid in my neighborhood with a BMX bike. I had a Team Mary bike, and before that, I was jumping on a 10 speed. Right. So my parents
Nice.
said, "Hey, let's get him a dirt bike." And so I saw this dirt bike at it's like Pep Boys, yeah,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
okay. So it had the knobbies on it and everything and no motor. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I'd never seen it. Okay. So I'm in a neighborhood where no one ever had a BMX bike. Okay. And now it wasn't the hood, but I will say that no one was gonna pay, no parents are gonna spend money on a BMX bike. Let's just put it like that. Like no kids had ever seen a bike that had knobbies on it. Right. So when
Right.
I got the
Right.
bike and brought it home, it was a spectacle. It was like you had an SC big boy bike, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
it was cool. But what happened, man, I started building jumps and things in the trails in the woods, and it was natural, it was organic. I'd never seen it. Okay. So I'm doing this for probably 2, 3 years and got pretty good at it. And had a couple kids in the neighborhood who had got BMX bikes and so forth. And so then I went to 7-Eleven and I'm looking
Mhm.
through the magazines. And then I see a magazine with Terry Tennant on it. And of course, I didn't know who it was. I just thought, and it just
Right.
happened to be that issue. So I'm thinking, so I started looking through it and I'm amazed because I had no idea BMX existed. And you can imagine, I'm
Right.
looking at Harry Leary and all these guys, and I'm thinking, what is, it blew my mind, right? So I went home,
Right.
told my dad, I said, I showed him the magazine, and he thought it was pretty cool. And man, we was at a track a week later. So I took that big bike down to the track.
Nice.
And of course, that bike weighed about what, 30 pounds. And I
Yeah.
think I was probably, yeah, man. And I think I was probably at that time maybe 12, but I was handling the bike. We get little kids can handle big bikes back in the old days because that's what we had,
Right. Right.
well, at
Right.
least I thought that's all they had until I got to the scene and you start seeing little Titans and Croupies and all this other stuff. But so anyway, man, I loved it. Got to the track, first race on the big bike, got smoked. I was a kid, stayed at the track afterwards, quite a while. And so what happened was we realized that the kids had much nicer bikes. And so I was getting dusted. So my dad said that okay, well, I tell you what, if I had to earn it. So I had to actually win on that big bike to in a
Okay.
novice class,
Right.
because we didn't have beginner. And so I actually won a race in the big bike, and the exchange was I had seen the Super Goose, and if you can imagine when I saw the Super Goose, I was like, I
Shit.
mean, oh man, I mean, really, Eric Root was sitting on it. And so anyway, I was fascinated, and we found one up in Riverdale, Maryland, and so we had the guy to hold it, and I had to come up with half the money, so I cut lawns. I cut all the lawns I could in the neighborhood. Came up with $150. It was $302, and went up to Riverdale. Man, got this bike. Man, I jumped on this Super Goose, and it's probably still too big, but got a third place my next race. This is novice. Got a second place my next race. Got a first place my next race. Got 8 straight, right? And then
Hmm.
back then you don't really, you just go right to the big show. So
Right.
I am expert. Literally 12 races later. Who am I racing? Brian Foster on the first day. So see, a lot of people don't know that Brian was my local guy. So it was Brian, Kevin Liebig, and then I met Phil Donnell. Have you talked to Phil? You know Phil Donnell?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't know
oh, oh.
film.
Let me tell you, that's some OG right there. Okay. Yeah, because he was Brian Foster was influenced by Phil, but we're all from Maryland. So anyway,
Okay.
so I had to get up quickly into the game. So I got beat up for a few months, man. And actually what happened, I mean, it's crazy, but I actually started being able to beat these guys, because back then we could just pedal. So I didn't have as much. I mean, Brian had mega skill, but all we did was pedal in the hood. That's all we did, pedal the hills and
Yep.
my dad, put a little training on me, so I just did a lot of hill work. So that's how I got introduced to the sport, and within that first year, after that first year, I actually was able to kind of find my way in the expert class. So I got on a team called Waldorf Cycles, which is pretty popular in Maryland, and then going into my second year, man, I was already on a national circuit, and interesting enough, I have some videos on Facebook where think about it. I'm 15 at this point. This is my first national year. I'm in Orlando, War of the Stars, right? Back in '85.
Right.
And in fact, let's go back. I'm Todd Lyons on the gate. Okay. Yeah, right. Shan Hatfield, right? Robert Lincourt, right? All these cats on the gate. I can name a few more. Kerry Zenzar. Anyway, so you got them dudes on. I didn't know who he was. Man, I actually pulled Shan Hatfield, pulled Robin Lincourt. And it's funny because I wouldn't even seen this video because I got third place, first time I placed in a national, and Todd Lyons won, and I think David Milham or someone was in second, if you remember David Milham, and I for Eagle Snacks, and Lincourt was for Eagle Snacks too. He was raced for Eagle Snacks back in. Todd Lyons was on with Eagle Snacks back in that day. So I got that third place, man, and that changed everything. It was very exciting. But that's how I was really introduced to BMX. But I kind of got thrown right into it. I know I might have gone pretty too far with that question. But
no, that's perfect. I mean, that's what it's all about. Is I just want to know the history of where you came with it. I started scrolling through your pictures, and I was like, this dude goes way back to it, because I stumbled, like when I got back into it early 2020, I stumbled across one of your videos where you were at the park jumping.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was in Morrisville that you recorded.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I saw you doing that there, and then I ran into you at the track, and I was like, that's the
right.
same dude that I saw.
Right, that's right, yeah.
So
yeah.
I was like, yeah. And Shannon used to race back in the 80s, too.
Oh, I know. I actually, I recognize his last name, and I remember, you said, I remember Polk, and it was interesting, your name came up in a recent conversation. I think I'm training a kid, he's 30, and your name came up with him. What are you currently doing?
4650 intermediate.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So you used to race back in the day, then you came back. Was that how it worked?
Yeah, my first race was in 79.
Okay. Wow.
I think it was like September, October 79. Then I started racing regularly in 80. And then I stopped maybe around 85, 86.
Okay.
And at that time I was 14X. So the thing is, it's funny, some of the names that you named that you lined up with, I lined up with those guys at Nationals up my way. I actually came down to Maryland for a national in Silver Springs, I think it was.
Oh, yeah?
Back in maybe 82, 83 or something like that.
Okay,
yeah,
that's right before me.
Raced the national.
Okay. Was that Rockville BMX, maybe?
I'm not sure, man. I just know it was in Silver Spring, Maryland, and we took a trip down there and raced. And
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, wow. You don't look like you carry those years. That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, all right, well. That's awesome.
It just came back maybe 2 years ago. A friend of mine, his son wanted to race, and so he was like, come to the track, bring your bike, and give my son some tips, whatever. And that was it, bro. I got a helmet that day, registered that day, raced that day, and that was it. Next week, I had a new bike, and yeah.
Oh, man, the comeback. We'll get there, but the comeback, I mean, that was fun. But to tell you what actually happened, that year, man, that year I did pretty well, and I was going into my next season at the national level, and I got injured, and I got injured bad. I had to have a complete reconstruction of the knee and the whole nine. But the highlight you would see on my page is Orlando. In Orlando, we had if you remember, we had Robin Lincourt. He was like number 2. Anyway, it was 1 through 7 on the gate. And man, you will see in this video, I actually got a good start, but basically most of the people everybody was side by side. This is the best race ever. Okay, it made me cry when I saw it later. I was like, yo, I didn't. Look, when I saw it, during those days we didn't have video, so I didn't know it existed. I didn't know this video existed.
Wow.
I'm laying up in bed after I came back. I'm laying in bed, needed the motivation too, by the way, and I'm just looking. And I said, okay, Todd Lyons, the Eagle Snacks, he got a video here. I'm like, all right, so I'm always looking at Todd stuff. And then
Right.
I look and I'm thinking, okay, Lando. I was like, but he a year older, but he would age out. He would age out of our group at times, and he was the number one dude. So anyway, I'm watching the race and I'm looking on the gate and I'm like, man, I think that's me. And I'm like, hold up. And sure enough, man, I was on the gate. And so long story short, like we had Lawan Cunningham, who was number one. He was my idol. I watched this dude, man. I read every magazine, man, everything, this dude's style. I mean, just everything about him. I just loved it, right? And I thought,
Right.
man, this dude's a monster. You know what I mean? Because he was so thick, and Lawan was a beast. He was already thick back in the day. Check him out today. Looks like, he trimmed up. He looks like a different cat, but he was 150 pounds. I remember as a 14-year-old. And mind you, when I started, I can be 150 pounds now, and I had to train to build, I had to put weight on 150 pounds, right?
Right.
So he was a big guy. So man, we come out of the gate, and literally these guys get the snap. I got a decent movement, but man, I pulled through the whole pack first straight, put them all in the back, bro. I'm in first place going to the first turn. Be every idol I had, all the dudes, and I held it the whole time. I made one mistake. I was literally off the track. And Lawan Cunningham, I think Todd Lyons was up front, and Lawan Cunningham was behind me, and I was just excited because I'm thinking I got Todd Lyons in front of me, and I got number one Lawan Cunningham behind me, and Todd is number one going into the next age group because that's how it generally worked. And man, I held my position all the way through, bro, and got that second place, and that was my highlight. And that's when I knew I was like, you know what, I could do this thing pro. I could definitely do this thing pro because those are the boys right there. That's who's going to the big show. I've had limited time to really have the bike skills, but I knew that I could put it down, Right after that, man, I got injured. Just tore my knee to pieces. I had to have a couple surgeries and reconstruction surgery. And by the time 6 months on crutches, back then, I hobbled on crutches. By the time I came back, I could barely stand up on a leg. So that was it. And, so I want to go pro. So, and back then, man, 17 and over, that's what I was coming back to. I mean, I would have came back to the end of 16X going into 17, it was 17 and, boys and men. Boys and men, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's always been that group, man. Yeah.
What's that now?
I said that's always been that fast group.
Oh, man.
No doubt.
So that was the end of my run on that first half until until the later years. But that's how I was introduced to the sport. And but locally, I was able to, and I'm just sharing the experience. But I was able to get the plates, in the tri region, from Maryland. And back then, you could do Maryland, you could get Delaware, you could do Virginia. I think we did all three of those. And so I battled usually for first or second plate with Brian Foster. And highlight was whooping up on him. Like when I beat Foster, I felt really good. And I beat him a number of times. And so when I came back, I didn't even know the dude continued. So when I looked out and saw who Brian Foster was, I was like, Blue Falcon. I was like, it's Brian Foster. So what? And I saw him on the X game, blew my mind. Loved it, man. I just blew my mind. And even what he's doing every day. And Todd and all those guys, just love it, man. It was awesome. Dude didn't even know who I was, but I found the video because of him and because of the things that he does for us in this industry and the doors that those cats open and the legitimacy that they add to it as well as the innovation and all they're doing. It's awesome. So I really love what's happening, to the sport. People have things to say, people always want to critique, but it was interesting because when I came back, I didn't have the position where, the rules and the politics affected me in any way. I was just a love for it. I was like, I hear you, man. You know what I mean? It took everything to get out. I don't want to, So, but I really enjoy it, man. I think it's a one of a kind thing. And so the sport itself.
Did you play any other sports in school?
Man, I tried everything. It was interesting, man. I consider myself to be an athletic person, but it didn't really come out until I found BMX. I tried everything one season. Gymnastics. Okay. Well, I boxed for a couple years as from 8 to maybe almost 10. I did that for a while. But after boxing, I did gymnastics, soccer, baseball, basketball, did everything but football. I lasted one semester. Generally, I wasn't crazy about team sports, and that's why I like boxing. But when
Okay.
BMX came around, oh, that was it, man. That was it. I never did anything else, ever.
Right.
And so I went from, a kid that was probably on a bench. I mean, really, like I was definitely not the starter in anything. But when BMX came around, I just ate it up.
That was your
That
sport.
was it, man. That was it. So when I got hurt, I was devastated. I mean, needless to say, we don't. I mean, this probably ain't the podcast for it, but things went sideways because I had so much into it. And the thing that's
Mhm.
tough that might be better these days. Back in the day, like nobody in my school even had a BMX bike. Like you know what I mean? So that
Right.
didn't mean
Right.
anything. You number one, what, Maryland, what? BMX bikes. Oh, that's with a motor? Nah, no motor. What, you riding a bike?
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I had to make a decision, do I roll with the cool crowd or, do I try to make a comeback back in this thing? Cool crowd, easy, knees
Yeah.
hurt, beat up,
That's how it is.
you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the comeback was even sweeter. So, but yeah, that was my early run with the sport. But a lot of people don't realize, man, I only had 3 years. So when I came back, that was my fourth year
Right.
ever and being, I mean, on a track. That was my fourth year. So I felt pretty good about that. But I hadn't really considered that until I was actually out there on, doing a little the local circuit. I was like, man, you know what? It's my fourth year. You know, but
Right.
but I've been doing fitness for 30. And power and
Okay.
speed and sprint and explosion. So when I saw BMX, I mean, I was box jumping hurdles. I was already, moving, and then I just turned
Right.
it up and got it specific for the sport. And
Perfect.
yeah, yeah. So
All right. Shannon, you got a question?
Yo, you answered so many of my questions, bro. Like in that first segment, I swear, I'm just like thinking all the questions. I mean, yo, listen, just yeah. How did you start? What kind of bike did you have? Were your parents supportive? Were you ever sponsored? Bro, you answered all these questions.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
So
well, I had one. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so what was your most serious injury in BMX?
I tore my ACL and my meniscus,
Ooh.
and at the same time. Well, I had to have I tore my ACL and ruptured the meniscus. So I only have, and the meniscus is like the cartilage that goes between the femur, the big bone of the leg, and the small bone, and
Mhm.
it's like protective between both bones. Where I tore half of it, so they had to sort of remove a piece. So as of right now, I have less cartilage on one leg, which a lot of people get tore up. But I also they took my patella tendon because they had to use that to replace the ligament that was torn. So I had a concern, whether that would ever be, 100% after I got hurt. And if I'd have known what I know now, yes, it would have been. But that pack had left. So what was great is that over the years, I had rehabbed it, so it'd been better than ever for many years. Because I actually went into bodybuilding in my 20s and was hit some champion competitions and won them. So I was I was up there. I was actually wanting to go pro with that, and decided
Okay.
not to, and that's how I got into the training. And so when I got into the training in 2000. Let's see, that was 96, maybe. I got into about 92 or so when I went to college. I went to James Madison University, and so after I got into the training, I was pretty, I was bulky. So I had never done any performance stuff. So I wasn't running, I wasn't jumping, I wasn't doing anything. I was just trying to be big. So
Right.
when I let that weight go and I took on a mentor, a cat taught me about functional training. I was like, functional training, what, you got to move and like I feel like aerobics, bro. So but I learned the method. He was my Yoda. And this dude just changed my world. So I shaved off this weight and I started really to enjoy the idea of being mobile and being athletic. And then I understood athleticism, and I had muscle, but I didn't have the movements. So I was able to develop that, technically, like I was an athlete, but it's dude was really on it. I mean, mobility, well, flexibility, mobility, force. You got your strength weight ratio, you got your power, you got your two types of power. You got the continuous reactive power, and then you got explosive power. He's on that level. You build that whole stack, and it's so he taught me that, and
Right.
so I started working with athletes. So I've been working with athletes for 20 years of my 30-year career. So when I guess 2018, I'm out walking around in the neighborhood with the family, and one of my students, because I'm training kids, as well, he's riding
Hmm.
his mountain bike, and I hadn't been on a bike in a minute. So and so I was feeling it. So I said, man, let me ride your bike. So I jumped on his bike, and mind you, I didn't own a bike at that time. Matter of fact, check this out. This is how far I was removed. My kids didn't even know how to ride a bike yet. They were track champions, national, state champions. Yeah,
Wow.
right. Yeah, they had ridden bikes when they were 7 or 8, learned how to balance, but they hadn't been on a bike since then. Bikes were not even a
Right.
part, and I had 5 kids, so we weren't doing anything bikes. It was all track and speed and explosive and jumps. We were doing all
Right.
this. So in
Right.
2018, I jumped on this kid's bike, and I ran up and I rode up to the curb. One of the curbs had a little slope, and there was what do you call it? One of the little what's the little boards that little kick boards. Uh,
Like a kick and go
yeah,
scooters.
yeah, yeah. So it was laying in the grass, and he was about to move it because he saw me running up. I said, no, 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 leave it right there. So I hit a little tail whip, and check it out. They were mesmerized, and I'm like, and I really for a second it really caught me off guard. I thought they were just spoofing me because they were 15, 16. They could really goof me.
Right. Right.
So I waited, and they were seriously like, man, what was that? You ain't seen anybody do that before. They hadn't seen any ESPN or anything. They weren't even right. So
Right.
and they
Right.
had never seen anybody in the neighborhood ride BMX bikes and do any bunny hops or anything. I did a
Right.
bunny hop, and they was freaking out. So I put the video on Facebook, just messing around, didn't think anything of it. My OG from back in the day, Phil, who is a downhill champion now, and he's like 55. Oh,
Wow.
the dude is
Wow.
nasty. He can still do flatties like boom, nothing. Like it went from a bunny hop. So anyway, he taught me pretty much everything, man. It was him and a few cats, but Phil was a dude. You know what I mean? He could make a bike talk. Everybody respected Phil. So anyway, so when Phil spoke, I listened. Phil said, "Get back on your bike," and I said, he said, "You need to get back on your bike," and I was like, "Okay." I didn't think much of it. He said, "Man, you can still be racing." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, man, you can be racing." I said, "They got a group for us cats, us old cats." He's like, "Man, you need it." Yeah, absolutely. So he said, "Check out YouTube." I went to YouTube, man, and I saw the Grand Nationals and all that. I'm like, "What? Come on, man! How did nobody tell
Yep.
me?" It went completely. I got 5 kids. Oh, I was, grinding on that for years. So I hadn't even
Right.
considered it.
Right.
When I saw that BMX still existed, man, I'm gonna tell you, man, things just like
Yeah.
the clouds
That's
opened
kind of
up.
how
I
I
was like,
felt.
wait a minute, bro.
Yep.
And they going hard. And then I saw the tracks, and I'm like, they don't
Yep.
throw rocks on the tracks. I was like, where your
Yeah.
knobbies at? Where's the knobbies? No knobbies? I'd never seen a BMX tire with no knobbies on it. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, they're clipping in. What are you talking about? Man, I was so far out of the game, man. As soon as I saw
Yeah.
that, man, just like my man Shannon did, I got a bike. Like the next day, I went on Facebook, begged my wife. I was like, hey, look, I got to drop $400 on this red line. I said, I'm telling you, it's worth it, and that ain't the bike, but I got to get on something now. And so I think it actually took me about a week. So you'll see the first BMX video I posted. I was on a mountain bike on a wooden slab propped up against a box working on my balance, right?
Right.
So I got on that red line. I didn't even know where the tracks were. So I went to a couple parks, and they were supposed to have some pump tracks, and it was almost wintertime. And our local track, Raleigh, was under construction. So I didn't think to go anywhere else. So I did a couple of the trails and found myself driving like 2.5 hours away. Then I heard about Richmond, and I'm like, okay, so there's a track in Richmond, Virginia. And so I went to Richmond and put the bike on took the bike out with the Levi's on, and whatever shirt I had, some $40 helmet some kid had on Facebook. I didn't care, man. I put that mess on, jumped on the track. First snap,
My
man,
bad.
you know the deal. Wheel was like this. I was on my back. But I recorded everything, man. I got everything from that first snap to winning Virginia, Maryland championships. Maryland, Virginia. What else we got? And North Carolina. Let me correct because they were correcting me. Virginia, I almost won, and I came unclipped, and I didn't have enough experience I wasn't even pumping yet. So I couldn't even really get the pump speed that I can do
Right.
like literally. It was like 2 inches. You know Gary Craig.
Wow.
Gary Craig.
No,
You know Gary? Okay, that's from Richmond. But anyway, I almost had 3 championships my first year I came back.
Wow.
And when I came back, I told him I was coming back for that. I said, I'm going to pick up where I left off. I said, I'm fit. I'm ready. Man, I was putting in this legitimately. And I filmed everything. So everything I'm saying, I got it all on film. And and it's all on my Facebook wall. But I was at the track throwing the bike over the fence, man. I was getting probably 8 hours of training because as a trainer, I had a schedule. I could do it. And so what I did, I used that time to catch up skill-wise because I had never done a manual. I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I want to start doing that this late in the game, Fell on my back once and went over the bars once. And both times I was like, if you don't get up now, you're not going to keep doing this. And so I did get back up and that was it, man. And so, that was awesome. So, yeah, I came back, man, and within months, I started realizing, I was like, man, these cats need that athletic training. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, BMX has never had structured training like other sports. Football, everybody trains. Soccer, everybody trains. You have 2-3 practices a week. So next thing, that was my goal. I said, man, I want to bring what I did for myself. I want to bring that to this sport. And that's what I did, man. Within months, some people were kind of salty about it, and I understand because they didn't understand my background. They just thought he's getting a lot of energy for a cat that hadn't done anything yet. Because at this time I hadn't won anything. It was just 3 months back, and I met DeWaylen. You know DeWaylen Carter?
I think I've heard of his name.
Okay, on the West Coast of Maryland, he was actually NAG 2 for 36 or 40 cruiser. Yeah, so he's in there. So anyway, he's a guy who brought me along as well. Him and a guy named Nick Schwartz. But anyway, so I wanted to give to the sport, and and it was also a way to finance it because I picked up a carbon bike from Truth, Eric Spears, and it was expensive, and family of 5, and so I was like, hey, I get the permission to do it, but I can't take, so I created a business, HP BMX, because I already had horsepower performance. That was my thing, horsepower. Mm-hmm. So I started training some kids, and next thing you know, man, I had kids all over the country. I had kids in South Africa, Ireland, Canada. I think those are the 3. South Africa, if I didn't say South. But anyway, so that was cool. And a couple world champions and a lot of local kids and a lot of NAG champions. But what I was the mix up was they thought that I was saying, hey, I can help you on the track. So when things got clear and they understood, no, I can help them be more explosive because we're all sprinters. And that first straight is 95% of the game. So I can teach your kid how to be as explosive as possible. They probably they're going to have better skills than I do.
So hold on. Let me jump in there. Yeah. So with that being said, because I've been talking to Shannon about this earlier today, I was thinking about lowering my gear to maybe a 43. I'm on a 45 now, I think. Uh-huh. I was thinking about lowering it down to a 43.5 just so I can pop out the gate a lot faster.
Right.
So if that works to that regards, how do I maintain that speed once I come around the first turn and not lose the fact that I'm spinning after that?
Wow, boy, we're about to go to school on this one. All right, look, there's a lot. There's a lot in there because you're thinking about, okay, force, right? Maximize. Mm-hmm. Okay, because force that's what we're putting out on the track. Always force. How quickly we put it down is what we consider speed, right? So the rate at which we apply our force is power, right? But the overall max velocity that we're going to move on a bike has also to do with the efficiency of our movements on the bike. So I've analyze cats like with some, like it's just an app. I don't want to sound like some scientist, but where we actually monitor the hip bones. And
Right.
so we lose a lot of speed in here with the hips bouncing because you have guys who are strong, but if you're not stable, you spill speed. So that question is challenged because I would have to see you move. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
To really, but just to go on the basis of what you're saying is that you're looking at RPMs, rate per minute or rate per second of how many pedals you can engage per second. Here's why. Here's what I'm saying. When I came back, one thing that I realized is that I measured my RPMs, and they were like 200, which was average, 220. Then it started getting a little better. Then I started doing some RPM training where I would take all the resistance off the bike, and the idea was, just work on how high can you get that rate, okay?
Okay.
Because you can go do a 300-pound squat, and I had about a 250-pound squat at that time. But if you can engage that quicker, then you're going to have more power. So being the explosion aspect, and I realized guys weren't really training that way. Like they do sprints, and hill sprints or flat sprints, but you need over speed training. See, in the sprints for sprinters, we have to get them to do things faster than what they actually can do them, so the body adapts to it, right? So,
Right.
long story short, with BMX, you can pedal over the gate to hit the first straight with more top speed than what you would if you came out of the gate. That's overspeed training. That cat's going to react faster, and he's going to develop his spin speed, and he's limited if he only does it out of the gate. But some cats just roll over the gate, not really thinking that. I'm in the stands, bro, when I come over there. You know what I mean? Just so I can hit that hit the first straight faster than what I would ever hit the first straight. So if I could do 29 miles per hour on the first straight, which, was my fastest, well, in the race, I'm running 27.5, 28. I mean, it's like slow motion. So the control is better. But that's just a concept of over speed training. Then you have maximal force, okay? Because some guys are strong, but their rate of application is slower. So that cat's going to be more of a pusher.
Right.
Right. And so that gets us back to rate. How do we know that he can't move it at a certain rate? Test him. So all my guys, I was getting RPM numbers, no matter where they were at in the country, no matter where they were at in the world. They would ride with no resistance and give me feedback based on their rate. So I would teach them how to build a neuromuscular connection to enhance the rate and give them a strength training program that would build force, which is, build that bottom level force, your absolute force. Then functional strength is how much of that force can you draw from when you have to move. You see, some cats are really good when they hold it, right? We can put them on a line. But if you got to run through the hole and you got to get to the end zone, that cat got to be able to move. He has to be a different type of athlete. So what we had to do is teach the difference, the distinctions between force, which is like, slower movements, pause, boom. If it's a squat, same thing. Slow it down, cut all the momentum out, make sure every movement is from zero, every time you move. That builds maximum force. If it's continuous, that builds power because we're using some momentum. So power is going to be limited if it's limited to how much force you have.
Right.
So I taught my guys to build that maximal force, get as strong as you can, and then let's move that force as quickly as we can, right? As forcefully as we can.
Right.
And here, take on this mobility and this stability training, and let's get that alignment on the bike so that, like a sprinter, when you come out, you see, and by me being a functional expert, my personal conditioning and stability was really on point, so I was ready to go. So I used myself as an example, and that's what really helped Horsepower, because they saw that I wasn't just running my mouth, because at first I was doing a lot of working with the kids, and then when I really went in, locally, I mean, it was only a couple, there's only a couple guys that I couldn't beat, and he was nag 2, he might be nag 1, I don't know. So I did pretty good. Now I will say, I didn't continue to try to push the level because I was going to take it to the national level. But I had a couple injuries, so I had to rethink how far I wanted to take it, because I couldn't even walk. I broke my ankle and broke my wrist, and each time it affected, you see what I do, on a daily
Right.
basis.
Right.
I'm developing a YouTube channel right now, and it's actually based on men's fitness over 40.
Okay.
And so when I can't grab the bar, when I can't do a pull up, or when coach can't jump through hurdles and do something that a 50-year-old has no business doing, it affects everything back here, the rest of the business. So I had to really think about how I wanted to approach it. So now I use BMX as a meditation, pure enjoyment, a training tool. I mean, I can never get in the shape that I got in that season without a BMX
Right.
bike. If people understood what a hill sprint would do for you, I mean, incredible amount of conditioning.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so that comeback lasted for about 3 years, and during that time, I helped quite a few, local and national champions. I don't want to, go on with that, but that's a blessing, because I wanted to do BMX professionally, as I said.
Right.
And one day I woke up and realized, I was like, wow, bro, you got like 35 people, and this is a professional income. And I thought, wow, I'm a professional BMXer. Like, yeah, bro. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
They didn't have to hold the check up. I mean, that's a professional BMXer right there. We need them in different professions. We got retail owners. We got track owners. Those are professional BMX people. But so that felt good. I was like, wow, and I'll take that for sure, because Cats was achieving what I wanted to achieve, and I was a part of it. For each of them, I'm like, wow, hey, I'm good.
So is your YouTube channel already up and going?
Yeah, it's Coach E TV. It's Coach E TV. I just sort of gave it a facelift. Truthfully, you'll only see maybe 20 videos or so. I'm just starting to post my long forms. I have quite a few reels that I've put out there.
Okay.
But that used to be all BMX, man. There's like 900 BMX videos in there. I mean, ones that I edited, because I have so much, and I didn't know how to share it. I mean, I did a lot of it is training and coaching and tutorials, as you can imagine. But I just didn't feel like I had the credibility to really push it much further when I wasn't actually on the circuit. And I didn't want to do the sport an injustice, and because there's other people who are in line for that. And I didn't want to use my marketing and, other things that I was doing to influence that in a way. Because, the BMX community is small and it's close, and it can be temperamental, and it's protected. And I respect that. So I stepped aside. So I hadn't been training any BMXers lately directly, but I got something coming for the fellas over 30. So part of what I'm gearing up to do is, because I do body-based training, and body-based training and calisthenics, and everybody's beat themselves up with bars and all this other stuff. So I had decided to do a program that was body-based training for BMXers over 30, different way to approach the game and things, and based on the things that we need to be looking for. And so that would give me an opportunity to package the experience that I had, and specifically. And the training regimen has been tested by, 50, 60 people. I mean, we have NAG plates, we have world plates attached to the same regimen. I'm talking the 8-year-old and the 18-year-old and the 30-year-old. It's just scalable. It's everyone's flexibility, mobility, their stability. You get that right, and then you build their force. Right. Kids do it with push-ups, lunges, their powers. Everyone's doing that with jumping. Kids and older folks might not explode off the ground. They might do fast-paced squats. You see, I get everybody on the agility ladders. We regenerate that neuromuscular connection, get the old cats popping again. They start realizing, whoa, because you can have the strength, but we slow down as we get older. So you got less access. You got less of a window to grab that 400-pound or that 300-pound or the 200-pound squat you have. You got a less of a window to grab it. So if we enhance that, we get more out of everything. So the first thing I would do is enhance their rate. You see, so instead of putting the guy under the bar, I'm like, wait a minute, whatever you can squat, let's get more of that. Like whatever your force is, let's get more of that. And that's quicker out of the gate. That's a quicker first straight. So question you had, if you reduce that gear and you got a quicker gait, now it really depends on the length of the first straight, but a lot of guys experience spinning out, right? You're spinning out. And when you spin out, the bike's going to wobble more. You're going to be less stable, right? Think about it.
Right.
Most people don't even think about it until they think about watching little kids. You know, the real thick gears they put little kids on, right? Why?
Right.
Because they have to lean on the pedals for stability. If they had
Mm.
something that spun like this, they would be wobbling all over the place. So the heavy gears give them stability, but they can't really get it going.
Yeah.
So what we did, we enhanced the kid's stability so you can reduce that gear so the kid can get moving. You see? Because what you're really looking at is when someone pedals, say I push down on the right. If you look at the hip has to drop on the right to some degree, right? Because you're driving down on that side. You got to reach that pedal. Well, it's two things. One, when that hip starts doing this because they're reaching for those pedals, imagine having some 280s, not 180 cranks, some 280s. You know how you'd be riding, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's like a little kid riding with some 180s. Way too much movement, not enough linear alignment to get the velocity going. Because the velocity it transfers from the left to the right to the left to the right, and then the transmission. Like you don't have a transmission, but you are the transmission. You're transmitting or transferring it left and right, the power, building that force, right?
Right.
So when we go too deep left and right, we can't get in the middle of that thing to make it, like the elites do. They come out of the gate, bikes in the middle,
Right.
and you don't have a whole lot of this. You know what I mean? That right? So
Yeah.
see? So what doing that means that like in track, every inch that they when they start out, it's push to the right left while you're running, and if we can minimize that left right, we're getting inches down the track. So what we realize is that the average person is going to spin out, and the first thing they do is put on a harder gear, and that's what you need to do at that moment. But what you also need to do is realize that, okay, so if I pedaled with no resistance and I check my RPMs off, on a stationary bike, not about stability, bike locked in, you spin, guys are averaging 200, 220. Well, that's how much engagement you have. A guy at 220 is getting about 3 revolutions per second. A guy who's running at 240 is getting about 4 revolutions per second. I measured the pros. They were getting 4.5 to 5 revolutions on the track per second. Now on the track, I might get 3.5. On a bike, I was getting 4.5. So I was up to 264. So I knew I had the rate, right? But I didn't have the skill to actually build that much speed on the track. But I knew I had the potential. So I understood. And so anyway, so what I did was I knew I had to get stronger because I have a small frame. So that's when I started, so here we go. Strength to weight ratio. That's when that became a difference. Makes a difference. You got guys that weigh 150 pounds, 200 pounds, 250 pounds. When we push out of the gate, it's relative force. It's not really how much force, it's relative force, right?
Okay.
So if I'm 150 pounds and I have a 300-pound deadlift, I have a 2-to-1 ratio, strength to weight. So a guy who lines up with me who's 400 pounds, he needs to be pulling 400 pounds off the floor. So I knew most of those guys wouldn't want to do that at our age. So I did it. You see? Bench press.
Right.
1.75. Not 1-to-1, but 1.5. So my bench press is close to like 200 pounds. Didn't need to do much more than that. Like I caution BMX, you don't need to be crazy top heavy. And then you look at like squats, same thing. Not quite a 2-to-1. I had like a 1.75. I never pushed it to 3. I think it was 260 or something. But I had like a 40-inch box jump. So
nice.
But I knew guys who had 300-pound squat. 36-inch box jump makes a difference. So what I did was as light as possible, as strong as possible, as explosive as possible, and get those skills those guys got. Get out there and get those skills, you see? And so and that's what I did. And I knew the skill was rep on the track. So when I went to the track, I would put a dozen into the first straight, the rhythm section, before I went into any, okay. In sprinting, when we're working on the start, I want to see 2-3 steps. I don't want to see 5 or 6 because you already got your head in something else. That's a transition. We don't want that transition. We want to be right here. So that's what I did. I broke the track down the same way. I had my 0 to 30 number before I even knew guys were actually measuring that. I mean, obviously they measured it, but I took mine the first day. It was like over 2 seconds, and eventually I was able to get it down to 1.7 or so. But I was monitoring that. So I would break the gate down into the first movement to getting that clean. then 0 to 30, and that's how I taught them, 0 to 30, and then we go from the gate to the first jump. Each of those are events in themselves on the first straight.
Right.
And then we would measure how quickly they got into the first turn. So when I train guys, that was my main focus, because I always said, look, I'm not the guy on the track, because you're probably going to have more skill than me, but I am the guy to make sure you're getting that first straight faster. And I can't imagine, and I tell them right off the bat, don't call me without a speedometer, because I got to measure everything. And you that way you'll know that it's worth your financial investment, because we're going to shave that time off. So wherever they were at, their parents would put a speedometer on that bike and get these guys to hit that first straight, get that number, and I would see it so I could see the quality of the movement. And that way, and then we would test their rate, their RPMs off the track. We would test their flat sprints for 30, for 90, 30 feet, 90 feet, and believe it or not, beyond 180 to spin them out to see absolutely how, because if you run it, whatever gear you're running, if I can take that gear further, like my twin, if I had slightly higher RPM than my twin, even though we squat the same, I'm gonna have a couple more pedals in there, because the engagement is pedal engagement. So we do this training on flats for sure. Man, you should see the pedal fly from under guys' feet. So when I realized that, I'm like, oh, so that 20-degree angle, guys weren't doing that. So at the bottom of the movement, you had this floppy foot thing. You got to lock it in. You got to move. You got to, it's only a little movement over top, and down the bottom, you had this raking action going on. So I started analyzing what was going on, and realized people weren't thinking about it. So that's what I did. The thing that made horsepower different when I came in with, hey, this force thing that everybody was kind of already doing, but the transfer of that force to functional power and functional strength and power was my niche. And then the RPM stuff, because of the sprint nature and knowing we need to have over speed training, and sorry about that, my battery. Knowing that you could do it downhill, but I never sent anyone downhill for over speed training. I just can't have you to sprint at a downhill angle. A kid, you're gonna you had to 29, 30 miles per hour is what you're gonna be moving for the average teenager, or guys our age. You could go that fast. I didn't want to go that fast. So on the bike, you can lock it in, and for 3 to 5 seconds, not even 5, for about 3 seconds, you can get your highest rate. So I taught guys to hit it 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, stop, because you ain't gonna get no more. That's as much, anything. Once you hit that peak number, peak is peak, it starts to go down. So if you want to train your top rate, you expose your body to that top rate, take adequate rest so you can hit that rate again. Because here's the thing about speed training. You won't be able to do what you hadn't done. So you have to set your body up so that it can achieve something that it typically can't do. And then you have to figure out, how do I repeat that? So you're never going to pedal a bike 30 miles per hour on a track. And so if you don't do overspeed training, your body has never done it. That was it. And by doing it, the body had done it. So you get the guys strong, and you get that overspeed training, not down a hill, not on a flat. Get them on not rollers. They were rollers, but with the bars, lock them in, lock that bike in. So you didn't have to worry about the stability, because at that point, we don't want stability. We want your top spin. I want nothing else but them legs move. I want you to, and so we taught them how to lock their torso in, how to hollow that body like a gymnast, like a sprinter, and just hit it, And so that and guys are doing it, but we just made it. We just brought it to parents who had kids who were going from intermediate to expert, and not all your nag riders, and to have access to all of that, and provided the accountability and the structure. So I had probably about 40 people doing this, and they were all sending their videos in, and so they had to legitimately we had to check it. So we had to look at your speedometer, and they would take a picture of the speedometer and show the top speed and share the video. And some of them had it on their phone, so they had an app so you could see how fast they were spinning. And I started posting the results on a leaderboard in a Google Sheet, and I just kept reposting it in a group, a BMX group that I had formed, and there was a few hundred people in this group. and there were 40 people participating, everyone else, watching, but they were learning.
Of course,
And
of course.
so the guys were just challenging each other, and you have 10-year-olds and you have 20-year-olds, you have 40-year-olds, and they just kept pushing it. And I did not know this would be the case, but we had some pretty significant people in there doing it, and my rate was just always the highest. No one ever rode faster than a 264. So I was proud of that, and it was good
Nice.
because I was 46, 47, but it said a lot about the approach more so than the individual, because we duplicated that. I mean, close enough to the point that people were really like making significant differences. But we kind of pioneered that, so that was fun, man. That was something that I really wanted to do. And I was able to bring what I had been doing to BMX, and so that was my comeback, and that was my experience, and that's kind of how I re-entered with that knowledge and that experience, and then it just got fun from there. But I came in pretty serious,
Okay.
yeah.
Also, I was going to say, because Shannon broke his leg or his ankle at Grands this year, right?
Oh wow.
Mm.
Man, this year? So you
Yeah.
cast it up right now?
Yep.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
so I was going to say, with that being said, I think what doctor say you're going to be out for like 8 weeks?
I'm sorry, I just cut off. I had to get back in. I'm sorry, I missed all
Okay.
that.
I was saying that basically you broke your leg, and so you're out for a little bit.
My ankle, yeah. So about 6 to 8 weeks of recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your question? What you thinking?
With someone like with at our age, what would you say the recovery time? I know everybody's different,
Right.
but to come back to basically be back to where you were,
Right.
what would you say you would notice the time frame would be for somebody that's our age group?
Well, I broke him twice. So the second time, I learned more than the first time. But the thing I would do for athletes, and the thing I did not do for myself, that I would highly recommend, don't move too early, because that will certainly prolong your recovery. I was trying to be Superman, and then I had to pull back. But stabilizational exercise is the key, man. That the stability of your ankle, regaining stability, is going to be the structural strength of your hip. Okay, it's not your knees, because knees don't stabilize themselves. And no joint stabilize themselves in itself. A joint is stabilized by the tension that's placed on it by the muscle, right? And the ligaments, of course. So in order to have stability and function, we're gonna have to regenerate the muscles. And that's usually the easier part, right? Because you can just do some basic leg extensions and some calf, but the actual functional stability and how it connects from your pinky toe all the way to the pinky finger, you know what I mean? From right to left, how it integrates, how you reintegrate that ankle into the whole sphere of things, right? To make sure that your body's producing equal amount of force on both sides, which typically it won't. And most guys just let it go. And then something's off, and it will affect your speed. It will affect day-to-day life. But if you really want to see how to affect you, do something at top speed and you'll see. And BMX is that. So guys so when they get injured and don't recover properly at our age, it's an issue. So I would say be ready to train your hips for lateral strength, because the lateral strength of the hip, your gluteus medius on your side, not the gluteus maximus in the back. The maximus pushes it forward. The medial side, right, that keeps it stable in the middle. That keeps your knees stable, keeps your ankle stable. You see, a baby can fall forward, but a baby can't stabilize himself to left and right. So let me tell you something. You want to keep somebody locked in on a bike, and you want to go faster, one of the easiest, most simplest things you can do, start working the gluteus medius, right? Start doing like side planks. Start doing, put the bands around your knees and do the moving walks where you're moving laterally sideways so you can get that burn in the side of your hips. Because when guys come out of the gate, they don't realize that the lack of lateral stability, which is the least, two things. You got lateral stability, too much of this, and then the rotation, right? When you're sprinting, if a sprinter was running like this, they're going to run slow, right? Man, check this out. when I came back, what I realized that cats didn't realize, we are sprinters, but cats didn't have core stability because you have to train it specifically as a sprinter, because you have to train it because your legs, your hips are going boom, 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 and your upper body's going the opposite direction. So when you're running, your hips want to rotate to the right and your shoulders want to rotate to the left, right? And if they go too far to the left and right, you can't run. So they actually you have to keep those shoulders like locked in, and you have to keep those hips locked in while the wheels are spinning on them, right? Up top and down low. Well, what stops the torso from left and right and the hips from going left and right is rotation stability. Most people don't train rotational stability. They definitely don't train the anti-rotational stability. So here's why BMXers don't do it. Because you're holding handlebars. You don't think your core needs it. If you were a sprinter, you would see your hands flopping all over the place. So when I got these guys off a bike and I put them in planks, they fell apart. I was like, whoa, you nags what? And you can't hold a side plank? Oh, you're going to kill them next year. You know what I mean? Because you already got the skill. If I had your skill set, because you could build with the muscle and the balance and the stuff I'm doing, we can get that this season. But the skill set, I won't get that in a lifetime. So we just put that together. You see? So it's about that core stability. It's about that lateral stability. And it's about teaching your body how to produce maximum force and lock in. And just like you see when these dudes are doing the watt bike, or when you see Connor Fields and some of these guys, when they get on those rollers and they spin, look at their head and their hip. That's the key right there. No movement. No up and down, no side to side. When they hit it for 3 or 4 seconds, it's locked in. Slow it down in slow motion. You won't see any displacement of mass, we call it. Displacement of mass says that's force going up and down. If you stop that, where's that force going to go? Straight down the first straight.
Right.
So your gear, I would have to know what your rate is, and know and see how you're moving on your bike. If you're moving efficiently, like I know a guy, a tall guy. Because Everett, how tall are you?
6'1".
Okay, so I like a guy DeWhalen. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's running 173 cranks. Right, I gave up his deal. Why? Because what we realize is that if you have spin, if you have power, you do give up leverage. But if you have a high rate of spin, you're gonna eat them up because you want to get into that spin. Because once you get just like sprinting, once you get up to top speed, maintaining it is everything. So maintaining it with a longer crank would be tougher, but getting up to top speed with a shorter crank is tougher. But if you actually have the force and you get the edge on the rate, we're gonna turn them over a little quicker, and we're gonna make up for the lack of leverage. And then once you get out of that acceleration phase into top speed, yeah, it's over. Your race is yours. Relatively speaking.
What size cranks do you run?
Oh, I was running 170s for myself, but I'm 5'7", so I'm generally a short guy. But I could have ran them shorter, to be honest. But Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I'm asking that because I went to 170. Somebody said it was going to change my life, and I think it did. I love them. Right? I'm 5'8", bro, so I'm not that far from you.
Okay.
I wanted to go to 165s. I was like, bro, I could probably do 165s. Yeah. And somebody was like, no, stop right there, bro. No. Like, that's the guys that was telling me to go to 180s at one point in 9-inch bars, though. You know, so the old school guys, you know how they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man, that was the spin game, man. But with I had to get the force up though, because I wasn't really squatting when I came back. You know, I was doing lunging and jumping and all that, but I wasn't squatting. So I had to really get that deadlift up and that squat up to match these big boys out of the gate, and reaction. Just move quicker. You know, and that's what I did. I got it there just a little quicker.
Well, I was gonna say, but I'm running the 180s, and I do it because it's just comfortable for me.
Right. Okay.
So
well, here's the thing. If you have the leverage, and you go with a lighter gear, that's 2 points towards the direction of instability. However, the top speed is going to be the person who can stabilize an unstable situation. So if you can spin 180s, you the man. You see? Right, because you don't need the stability. All you can do is because your bike, your body is holding it all. Like what I explained to them, most of the guys who are unfit, just like I used to ride horses, and the first thing it taught me was if you slow the horse down, I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, your posture, your inability, your lack of mobility, lack of fluidity, not moving, like all that slows the horse down. I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about it. So and so you can't really rest on the horse. You have to suspend yourself. You see, you're holding the reins and your feet are in the stirrups, but you're suspended. And the amount of pressure you put on the horse, it should be limited. Like the person who's squeezing the death out of the horse, that tells the horse to slow down anyway. You see? Oh, it depends on the training of the horse. But so if you can ride the horse and barely touch the horse, that's a jockey. You see, you look like you're resting on a horse, but he has his feet in the stirrup and he's just letting the horse 1,000 pounds do his thing, right? So on BMX, when you get on the rollers, check it out. Check how much weight you put on the bike, how much you rely on the bike to balance you versus you being the balance and the bike just freely spinning under your body. So what I teach guys is like typically they over grip and you don't realize how much grip you got on. You shouldn't have to hold it like that. It should be pretty light. You see? So after you snap out of the gate in between jumps, you're not, especially after you accelerate, that's light. You're not gripping nothing. Like there's no forearm pump in BMX unless you are just over gripping it, which means you can't really let's see how you give an example. You're not going to be able to apply as much force. The tighter you squeeze here, the more neuromuscular demand is required in your forearms and everything, and it will take away not strength, it takes communication away from other body parts, which will take strength away because you don't have the contractions that the body would make because you don't have the communication to say, hey, do all of that stuff. You got 50% of everything going in right here. You only got 50% left for the rest of the body. But if you're good and you have 10% up here, then the body's like, hey, I got 90% resources left. How you want to use this? Right? So being stable enables the stable person would have to use a much lower overall percentage of their effort to stabilize the bike, which means the rest of it goes into what? Speed, pure velocity from A to B. You see? Right. So and think about it, a shorter crank, if you don't wobble, think about it, if you're perfect, if everything is perfect, you would be moving that crank like this. We just need to turn it over faster than the other guy. Now, if he has less rate and he needs a longer crank, then give him a longer crank. And if he's a stronger guy and he has a bigger gear, like LaJuan Cunningham back in the day, as I told you, he was a thick guy. He didn't spend nothing. He powered that bike. And we all powered him. I had, believe it or not, on a cruiser, I ran a set of profiles. I didn't know any better, 180s back in the day because I had to have these profiles. But generally speaking, I ran 175 like a lot of kids back in the day, right? We ran 175, but now the game is different. And you really have to get that point of stability in the middle. And the sooner you can get your kid to stop resting on their pedals with each pedal, and guys our age, when they come back, they're not as stable and they don't realize that the movement of the bike left to right is a loss of speed. So you see, the less the bike moves left and right, that means the more you're stabilizing it, the more more linear speed and force that you get out of that.
Okay. I remember back in the day, a lot of guys rode like this because it just looked cool, bro.
Oh, I can't ride like that. It took me a minute to get out. I had guys, talking about that, and I couldn't even really stop doing it. Yeah, Terry Chenette taught us that.
It just felt right.
It did. It felt good. I was disappointed that wasn't cool anymore. I was like, man, what are you supposed to do?
Believe me, when I came back, I was throwing my leg out and I hear, old school's on the track. And I'm like, what? We don't put the leg out now? I'm like, no.
Oh my God.
No, we don't put the leg out.
You put the leg out, bro?
I put the leg out, man.
I did one of those. Did you guys clip in?
Shannon does. I don't. I just got the intermediate, and I should, but I'm scared to. So I haven't yet.
Man, it took me a minute too. And when I did, I thought, oh, that's what that's about. Oh, yeah. The control, man. The way to be able to, don't get me wrong. I practice a great deal with flats. I rode with flats. I practiced with flats. I've never done spinning with clips. Just saying. So I did all my training, even going to the track. I would do half my training with flats. I wouldn't do gates with flats because I heard Connor Field once say, do gates the way you're going to do them. Don't play with the gates. So I stopped using flats on the gate. But I always use it on the rest of the track. So I get to the track, I put my first half of training in, and then by that time, when the gate goes live, then I'll switch out my clips, just because there's a different motion, a different movement, bringing that pedal around, and
Right.
if So anyway, but yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend it or not recommend it, but I will say, on the most competitive level. I wasn't. I knew I personally needed to be clipped in. Maybe Terry Tinette
Right.
does not need to be clipped in because apparently he's what 50 in a Vet Pro, went back to Vet Pro or something.
That dude is so fast, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Even at his age.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I was telling Shannon. I'm like, as much as I want to be competitive, I don't get paid for it, so I don't know if if it's worth the risk for me.
Right.
Like I'm having fun out there doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get smoked, but at the same time, you just get up there and you're like, I know I probably could have got close to that guy if I just was clipped in, or you don't want to leave that doubt every time you start to ride, because then it just stops becoming fun for you. You're always going to start thinking about that. So that's
Right.
one of the issues that I'm having.
Well,
So
let me plug my phone in real
You
quick.
just don't want one of these, bro.
You said what? That? Oh,
You just don't want one of those. That's all. I know, man. I get it, bro. I don't want it either.
plug my phone in. Nah, man. Look, I concur, man, on that message. I hadn't even publicly talked about it yet, but I had to really. I just explained it to you guys a little bit, but yeah, I had to really think about it, man, because I personally couldn't afford, to get jacked up again, and
Right.
but yeah, if your goal is not to nag out, you have options. But if you want to go as fast as you can and have the most amount of control that you're going to have on a bike, you would need to clip in. But that's my opinion. So when I decided that I did want to go nag, I started clipping in to prepare for that. Definitely made a difference. And I enjoy riding both ways, But I'm a jumper, man. So, I like whipping and all that. So when I do that, there's no clips. I'm on the trail and I'm not messing around with any clips. That was straight for the track, And I wish they didn't, but I wouldn't if they didn't. I wouldn't clip in because we all,
Right.
Some of those cats didn't have pre-clipping experience either.
Right.
And I was like,
Like me.
Oh, I see these cats without clips. Oh, that was just interesting. If we rode back in the day,
Yeah.
they would clip what? Even 10 speeds had a slot. You slide your foot in. There's no clip.
Yeah.
So clip, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest fears, when we start to get into the intermediate and the older guys look at each other and then we start clipping in around the same time.
Yeah.
Like, we always look at each other and the one thing that goes to our mind is, God, I really don't want to fall over the gate and mess you guys up.
Dude, I looking for my plug. Dude, I blew it. I fell on the gate a number of times because I came back intermediate, and because I was ready, and by the time I hit the track, I had been practicing. Needless to say. Anyway, I won my first intermediate race, and the dude who I beat was going for the number one plate intermediate, and I just thought, oh, that wouldn't be right because I knew I needed to go with the experts, but I only had 3 races,
Right.
a cruiser race. No. I had a couple races. And so what I did, I went and got the cruiser and thought, okay, I could race the experts and I don't have to classify as an expert. And then I wound up classifying as an expert. So I did race 20 as an expert, but I went 46 to 50 cruiser, and I had both bikes, but I just really enjoyed the cruiser. So I was going with the cruiser, but, yeah, so that's how I chose, what I was doing. But I clipped in quite early, because as soon as I shifted over, I was like, okay, these boys are, I ain't doing this. You see what I'm saying?
That's your first time clipping in as an adult, correct?
Oh yeah.
All right,
I got
got
it on
you.
video. It wasn't pretty, but it got good, So what I would say, it was based on my goal. Like I really had to really think about that. It wasn't like
Right.
being a bodybuilder trying to determine whether you're going to do steroids or something like that. But it wasn't something that I considered to be natural for BMX. Hey, I'm old school. Don't if somebody sees it, don't
Right.
don't beat. You know, because, you know, you have cats get, I mean, but hey, man, I'm 83. Okay. So the idea, and I came back, I had no awareness of BMX truly. So when I came back, I mean, clipping in was
Right.
just like, what? How can you clip in
Yeah.
on a BMX bike? I mean, bro. And
Yeah.
then, of course, you see it, and I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And so you can make things happen that you couldn't. Like one thing, like taps, speed jumping. You know, you got a double. You hit the lip of the first one. You know, push, dip down in it, pull that wheel up, and push down on the backside.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can. All you gotta do is pump your legs,
Yeah.
and the bike can do what you got to do. And
Yeah.
you can do that with flat, but you have to have that skill set. So we had those skill sets back in the day. So cats who just came
Right.
back who didn't have that could not do that without flats. So I don't know if you
Right.
ever saw this, but I did a bunny hop once, and it was like 33, 34 inches, and on flats. You know, and I mean, it was on Facebook, and I was
I saw
sharing,
that.
I was sharing like, hey, you know, this is a bicycle engagement. You know, you know, and cats weren't even thinking that was even possible. You know, and this dude's like 50 years old. Why is he doing a 3-foot bunny hop? Because that.
Bro, I was super impressed.
Oh, you saw that?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
you
okay.
I think you were like right in front of your house in the street somewhere or something, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And you had
cool.
put up the 2 little bars. Yeah, I saw that, bro. Oh yeah.
Oh, that was cool. Thank you. So, I shared that to say, the performance. Like, I'm not faster on a track, but this explosive bunny hop says this dude got some, like, whatever he's doing on a performance end. Check it out, because he's explosive on that bike. You know what I mean? So, and that's what it was from all the training. But yeah, man, that's that flat game is where it's at on a training end, because if you needed to do that. See, when you start pedaling really fast with no clips on a
Mhm.
RPM bike, you know, when you're spinning and the feet start slipping off, that you can keep your feet on those pedals. The fastest your legs can't out pedal your feet. They do, because they don't have proper pedal engagement. When you learn how to pedal really fast on flats, you have the right angle happening and the right recovery and all the movements, and 4.5 revolutions per second. You're never going to pedal that fast on a bike. Your feet on flats, your feet are like glued on them pedals. They own those
Right.
pedals, right? And the issue is when guys come over the top, usually the hips, and our age, the hips are so tight that when the pedal comes over the top, they got to hike the hip to get the pedal around. So they got the hip is hiking. You see? Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then at the bottom of the pedal, you got to extend the foot at the right angle, so your hip doesn't have to drop. You gotta push it down. So as a sprinter, everything we do is all ball of the foot, pound on the ground, vertical pressure going through the body. Cats been riding bikes 10 years, don't do vertical pressure, pogo hops, bounces, hurdle jumps, all of that. They don't have that
Right.
vertical. They lost it. Why? Take the average guy who can smoke you on BMX, put him on the line and ask him to run with you. He ain't beating me, but he can smoke me on a bike. But I got vertical force, you see, that person doesn't have. But if you have both the bike skills and that vertical force and that training, because you know you that force goes to the body vertically. So when we pedal, we don't think about it because you're bringing it around. But at the very bottom, you're supposed to put vertical force into that pedal, not just
Okay.
pedal in a circle. So your calves are at the very bottom.
Right.
They whipping those pedals around, brother. Just like when I do a bunny hop, boom, you gotta push and release. So the quicker you can release, the more power your body will put out there.
Okay.
You can release. So when you push down into the bunny hop, yeah, you're pulling, but the sooner you can let go, like Jordan, as soon as he leave, he just relaxed. He would float. But
Right,
he would,
right.
the quicker you can engage, what you measure, man?
What are you doing,
You
Shane?
looking at 30-some inches.
We said 33 inches, bro.
33, yeah. Let me plug my
I'm
phone.
thinking like, yeah, I might be able to get that, but nah, bro. Holy
I
crap,
think,
bro. That's,
hey, look, you got to give it a shot. Hold on 1 second.
bro, that's crazy. I used to be able to bunny hop too, but 33 inches is a lot.
33
bro.
inches is a lot, dude. That's
Yeah,
like
man, that was coming.
that's almost 3 feet.
Yeah, it is. But check it out though. Since we're having fun with this, I have you seen my video of me jumping a hurdle with no BMX bike?
Yeah,
You saw that? The 48
Yeah.
inch jump?
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it's the same premise. If somebody jumped, it's the same movement. You see me go over the box, my hands go this way, or the hurdle, but when I'm done, my hands are like this. And my legs are in a tuck position like you BMX. It's the same thing. So somebody who
Right.
has hops, period. Okay, so when you're sprinting, what determines the sprinter speed is going to be the height at which they're off the ground and how far they can travel. So you have to get some height under your feet. Where every time they strike the ground, that's vertical. Everybody thinks you're pushing forward. Once the legs are cycling, you're just tapping the ground that lifts you up. But when you hit the ground, you're getting that swipe and the vertical push. What's up?
So with that being said, because I used to be able to dunk 10 foot, right?
Oh yeah, nice.
But I now that I'm 45 years old and over 300 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
I look up there and I'm like, I can't even touch the rim.
Right.
I can get that back.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Absolutely. And then you got to think about strength to weight ratio. How much do you weigh when you did it?
That's probably about 265.
Oh, yeah. Then you definitely could do it. So what you would need to do is, now what you had at that time, you might have acquired it more natural, but after 30, or really after 40, we got to be intentional. You know what I mean? You got to be
Okay.
intentional about what you're doing. So just the idea of knowing, okay, I need to enhance my force, make sure I'm functional so that when I go to put it in, my quads, my glutes, my hamstrings, my calves, that fluidity, the movement is efficient. You know what I mean? Because think about it. If you played in the NBA, would you be asking me that question?
Probably not.
No, because you have your skill set alone. You have done it so many times, you probably do it at 300 pounds. You see what I'm saying? Right. So
Right.
now that might not be, you might not be that efficient, or it might not be that ingrained as a neuromuscular movement. But if you focus on that intentionally, you enhance the attributes of the body that's needed to be athletic. And that's, we've gone over like mobility, stability,
Mhm.
foundation.
Mhm.
You gotta be stable, but you have to be mobile while stable, right? Dynamic stability is mobility and flexibility and all that together. You have to be
Right.
able to basically maintain leverage while your limbs are moving furthest points away from the core center of gravity, right? Which is in the middle, right? So that would be like a gymnast would have a high level of stability. And when they're tumbling and the arms are fully extended, the reason why that all looks good, because the average person can't push their arms and legs away from the core, from the center of the body, and do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So
Right.
when we're sprinting, that's still the same function. It's still, you're moving the core. You're moving your core. You're just moving
Okay.
your center of mass. And the legs are the wheels, and the arms are the balance to the wheels when you're sprinting. And on the bike, the same thing is actually happening. So the more you can stabilize the hip, check it out. If the hip drops a quarter of an inch more on one side than the other, which is likely because we're not robots, but that throws off the equilibrium. It cuts back on your speed. To be as fast as possible, you want both the left and right to function exactly the same. So the brain wants to actually balance out these movements, and it wants to know the length of the right and left is the same. And once it knows that, you could just go nuts. Like the body will just go crazy with power. So the whole thing about the athlete, we're trying to make that happen. We're trying to become more efficient at how do you get power out of the body. You can build force, you can build strength, but can you express it quickly and explosively and clean, with minimal deviations from the most ideal position and movement pattern. So when I watched BMX from the beginning, oh man, I'm tell you this. Look, first thing I did was before I came back, I went to watch the Grands in 2018, and I measured everyone's first straight from the 5 years old all the way up to the 60-year-old, and I scaled it out. This is crazy. This is how anal I was. I scaled it out. They basically, obviously, they peak at the pros. Okay, of course. Like speed wise, from 5-year-olds all the way up to, Connor Fields, right? Then from the vet pros on down, it came back down. So what I was able to get out of the data, what I wanted to know is how fast is the fastest 46 and 50-year-old? They were as fast as the 15-year-olds. So when I got to the track, if you were 15 and had a nag, top 10 nag, oh, you were my target, because I need to be able to beat you to deal with these dudes, right? So it was cool because what I learned was it was only a 0.4 on average, 0.4 of a second between 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, not all the way up. Even, and then it was point 0.4 of a drop from Connor Fields to Tyler Brown, I think, you see, speed-wise. And then it scaled down just from there, every group. So when I looked at my group, you look at the peak, the boom, boom. When I looked at my group, it intersected with the 15-year-old. So when I was training people, I knew how fast they needed to be. You need to be as fast as the average 13-year-old at your track. Like, beat the local 13-year-old, then go for the national 13-year-old. You're going to be ready for your national level because that's the speed they're moving at. But it was only 0.4 of a second. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that was great. I was like, man, they're only 0.4 of a second difference. If the parents really thought about it, if we make your kid a second faster, that kid is as fast as the next age group. Why are we not focusing on that? You see? And we just focused on that. I taught them that. I taught them to focus on the fact we need to make your kid a half a second faster to give them the elbow room. And need to make that happen by the first jump because psychologically that changes the race. So looking at that 0 to 30-foot time and the speed to the first straight was a huge focus. And that's long before your RPMs make a difference. Your RPMs don't make a difference until you get out beyond that first jump. You see, maybe at the end of your first straight, most guys can wind out, right? I mean, if you're going to wind out. I mean, some guys really don't, depending on your gear. But that's what I noticed. So I measured them and realized that, okay, so if not, and these are all boys. I measured the men. Everyone who was in the first straight first, except one race, won the race. Certainly saying that 95% of a chance that you're going to win the race getting the first straight. One kid, and he wrecked. That was the only kid that didn't actually just win the race, right? So that's how important that was. So I got the parents to think about it. Right? Why are you dropping $3,000 on a bike when your kid's doing no fitness? What? Okay, it's BMX. You're not thinking. Okay, let's get the kid on some planks. Okay, I mean, you are spending $15,000 this year to run a circuit. I mean, your kid can't do a push-up, can't hold a plank, and he's nag 5. He'd be nag 1 if he could do these things. You see? Yep. And that was the approach. But when I measured them and I realized how close they were, it was fascinating, man. I was like, wow, I don't know if people are really up on this. And knowing how many pedals they were getting in. And then the rate of pedals, you see? Because we want the RPM. So if you can go with a smaller gear and spin it more, we really want that. Like think about it. Dirt bikes, that's why the RPM's so high. They don't sound like Harleys, do they? Nah, because they ready, because you want it up there. You don't want, So all of the training was geared towards cats really shaving a half a second off the first straight because I couldn't help them with the whole track. Most people wouldn't just focus on the first straight. Most people wouldn't just put this kid in sprint school and say, hey, think like a sprinter. I mean, you're probably busting kids at school down 100 meters too, but I got to make you think like a sprinter. You're a sprinter. You just do it on 2 wheels, not 2 feet. And so that got the parents to be focused on that, and everybody has speedometers. So we could measure everything they did. And when a kid makes an adjustment and looks down and they don't need you and they're like, oh, that was better, instant. They would do that again, whatever it is. And you can ask them, what'd you do different? Well, I think I did. All right, try it again. Boom, did it again. Oh, yeah, I was doing this. That's it. Instant feedback. So as a coach, you want to be able to give your athletes instant feedback as quickly as possible because everything your body does is it's memorizing. So the more you rep anything, the body is like recording it, and at some point you don't have to hit play anymore. It's just going to do it on its own. Right. So you want to ingrain exactly what we're doing so that you don't have to think about it anymore, because then we can put all that power, like we talked about, into something else. And that's not physical, it's your awareness. If you have to actually be aware of it, it will slow you down. If you have to process it, it will slow you down.
Yeah, I heard that.
It will have to slow you down. When you first learned how to tie your shoe and you had to think about it, it was certainly slower than what you're doing right now. Right. Thought moves slower than your body is actually able to move. Yeah, you might think, well, I can process stuff really quickly, but if you actively are processing and thinking it through, then you're unfamiliar with it. You are solving stuff. You're solving, you are breaking down, and might as well be a freaking calculus equation or something. Because if you want to sprint and you doing that, your body's like, hey man, let me know when you're done with all that, because we need everything down here, and you got too much going on up there, which is why, breathing and being, knowing with your head game going up the gate and knowing how to let all that go, and you know what I mean,
Right.
and then let it all hit at once. Most guys feeling dopamine all over themselves as they walking out the gate. So by the time they come out of the gate, they done already had a fight or flight in staging. Yeah, that's straight up. Right. So the deal is you want to delay all that. But that's a whole nother topic. But we taught that too. Yeah.
Okay, so what about nutrition?
What I recommend, okay, we're sprinters. So that's carbs, baby. Don't I've done keto while BMXing, look good, but the average person does not want to do that. You do not have a great deal of energy with that approach. And that, by the way, if people don't know what that is, that just means we're lowering our carbs. Generally, somewhere between 0 to 100 grams of carbs a day usually qualified. 50 puts you moderate keto, 0 was full-blown keto, and 100 was I forget what that pretty liberal. I forget what they call it, but I loved it. I mean, I trained well on it. My body was strong on it. Felt really good, but I couldn't use it for my athletes, because you had to really be dedicated to, if you're going to be an athlete and perform while doing keto. It's the timing of when you take in carbs and things like that is really key. And here's what you got to know. Explosive power essentially is fueled by carbohydrates. Beyond the 14, 15 seconds, you got about 14, 15 seconds of ATP, free energy. So a sprinter can run 100 and never burn carbs. Right. But we'll get back to that. But on a BMX bike, that's a little different, because you're going 35, 40 seconds. So after about 15 seconds, we're using a glycolytic energy source, which is mainly to break down the carbohydrates. So if you're not eating carbs, forget about that. Forget about being your fastest. Now, you could be competitive and you could do great, but you ain't going to be your fastest self. You could be number one in the state. You just would be.
So what you're saying is how my day-to-day should be this, but leading into the weekend on a 3-day national, I should switch it up.
That's what I did. I switched it up, bro, on a drive down. I stayed keto, and on a drive down, I started loading up the day of the race, I'm eating baby food. Just straight carbs. No, I'm serious. That's what I did. I had, and your body, it's not used to having carbs all the time, but I wanted to be light, and I needed the glucose straight to the veins. And when I left the track, I went right back to keto. That was it. You see?
But for the whole weekend, you was just carbon?
Well, no. I carb for my races. Period.
Okay.
Right. So here's the thing. I was using more simple forms of carbs because it would hit my system faster. So I wasn't loading up the carbohydrate stores, having 300 or 400 grams of carbs like I would if I want to get, beefed up. I would. But so I was keeping the carbs really light. But another thing, when you're keto, and you reduce carbs hold hydration in the water, hydration in the body. Carbohydrate. Every gram of a carb will hold about 3.7 grams of water. So if you let the carbs go, the water goes. You dehydrate. It's another thing. Keeping yourself cool and hydrated when you're doing keto and you're really athletic, be careful. Because so how do I deal with that? Electrolytes, stay on them. Be very focused. Don't just drink water. You just drink water when you're sweating, you're going to dehydrate. You got to get the salts back in your body. So I actually had Himalayan sea salt that I'd put, if I drank a Gatorade, I'd put it in the Gatorade. Like real salt. Like you really need salt. You need a few things, potassium, your salt, magnesium.
So then coming out of left field with that, though, because like someone like me, I'm on high blood pressure medication. Okay. So how would you incorporate something like that into it? Somebody shouldn't be adding salt to it.
Right. Well, the reality is you're not supposed to eat. You're not supposed to get but a certain amount of salt a day. So what I would recommend, and like anyone, but you have to pull back on the things that generally give you sodium that you're getting nothing out of, so that you have an allowance is still there for very specific. So if you can take in 200 milligrams in a day or something like that, if you take that in with a hot dog or McDonald's, you already got it. The McDonald's. Well, of course you don't have enough when you want to. You see, so you have to have a budget for that. And because I like filet of fishes and 2 cheeseburgers, my thing. And I can tell the fluid, like if you're drinking and hydrating, you can tell the fluid is held on your body. The scale will tell you too.
Right.
So yeah, you have to be mindful of that. But now, obviously, the salt will increase your blood pressure because your body will retain fluid, and that fluid puts additional pressure on your vessels. So the heart is challenged to pump the same amount of blood to a vessel that has pressure on it from the water above it.
Right.
The interstitial fluid, just the pressure on the vessel. So getting the fluids out of the body, like exercise, like sweating, is a huge way to manage it, believe it or not. Because think about it, if you don't sweat, you don't, like, all fluids to go in have to evaporate or has to be urinated. It has to be excreted out by urine, basically.
Right.
It evaporates through the skin. We can dehydrate just sitting here. But sweating is very is an active form. Sweating from exercise is very active, but you can. It's huge to regulate blood pressure and water tables, and therefore blood pressure through activity. So having intense activity that requires you to sweat is a good thing. But no, I would not recommend. As far as being on blood pressure medication, you're not adding that much salt to your drink. And I think that my advice would be is to look at the rest of the meal plan and pull back on areas where you do have salt, because it's probably unnecessary, or sodium. And if you really want to use that in terms for training, you would have to balance that out. You would need to know what works and what doesn't work for you. But generally, you're not looking at that much sodium to your drink.
Because I was going to say, it's also a lot harder too. And I was telling Shannon, for once I hit over 40, it's harder for me to diet. Now I stay sweaty. You can see I got a glow on me right now. I sweat playing video games. So sweating's not a hard thing. I'm like, dude, you stick me in the lineup, I'm gonna look guilty because I'm sweating through the pits, just standing there, bro. I did it. So that sweating is not a problem for me. And when I am dieting, when I am focused, the weight comes off. Everybody's like, "How did you lose 40 pounds in like 3 months?" and this and that. And I'm like, diet and exercise. Right. There's no special secret to it. It's just. My body burns, let's say my body burns 3,000 calories a day. Right. I was probably eating 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day, because if I want to eat it, I'm going to eat it.
Right.
And I said, so once I started putting it in the program, I'm like, all right, let me just do this.
Right.
And the weight would come off.
Right.
But after I hit 40, when I won't go back to the same regimen, my body's like, yeah, dude, that's not going to work this time.
There you go. Well, that's interesting. That's a whole nother conversation, man, which I actually would love to come back with you guys and kind of do something specific, because I think if people hear this, they might think, man, if that cat's not doing that anymore, I would like to have that information. And I plan to bring it back, but I'm just not going to bring it back for the kids. I'm going to bring it back for, dudes over 30. So, yeah, so that might be cool. But, so anyway, but yeah, that.
Because I'm on the opposite end of that, bro. He's trying to lose it. I'm trying to gain it.
Oh, right.
So like, how do you hold your weight when you're so active? I mean, especially you.
Yeah. Well, that's the training, and it's primarily body weight based training. So the thing about body weight based training, is that you're moving your body. So your strength to weight ratio is highly enhanced, and that's important because that's the whole game, is strength to weight ratio, right? You want to be able to put more force in relation to your body weight than the guy beside you. So when you can do a pull-up, which I know is tougher for the big guys, but when you can do a pull-up and you can pull your own body's weight, you got to think, when you're speed and sprinting, you're throwing your body. You're literally whether you're on a bike, whether you're on 2 feet, you're essentially throwing your body, right? You just continue to throw it every step. So think about throwing a rock. If you have a big rock, a really big rock, and you throw it, it might go, 20, 30 feet maybe. And then you get a pebble and you go to throw it. That might go about 20, 30 feet too. You know what I mean? But you find a rock in the middle, that's probably going to go, 100 yards. You see? So you got strength to weight ratio, and having the max amount of force behind the right ratio of weight makes a major difference. It makes a major difference. Like I tell guys all the time. I had a guy was BMX. He was like 325 something, 325 something like that. He came down to he's down now to like 225, 230 maybe. Man, that dude couldn't even stay on his bike. He couldn't keep the bike on the ground. I'm serious because he lost it. He did keto and he lost it of over 4 months or so. And he couldn't keep the bike on the ground because he had so much more speed and he didn't have the skill set. His skill set hadn't improved that much, you see. So he couldn't keep the bike on the ground. It was crazy. But he won his first race that he came back. He was doing keto and he won the race. He did really well, but he was all lightheaded and all. And we realized, I was like, bro, you dehydrated. Hydrated, he felt bad, he was good. But he was concerned because, you know, when you dehydrate, your heart rate can increase and all this other stuff. And but once he went to the doctor told him the same thing, you're dehydrated. And from there, he started hydrating himself, keeping himself hydrated better. He's done fine with it. But yeah, I would recommend it if you're a BMXer and you want to lose weight. I definitely would recommend it. It just needs to, like I explained today, just have a focused approach and know that it could affect your performance. But if you're like, hey man, look, this my gym right here. You know what I'm saying? I'm enjoying this. I'm having fun. And if you want to tighten it up, just eat some more carbs that day. You know, and if you don't want to, you don't want to deal with that, eat more carbs. You see, and the body will maintain its hydration levels better. Like you can eat carbs all throughout the weekend. You don't have to not eat. You know what I mean? Go back to your keto on Monday. You can really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's what I'd recommend. I'd recommend just do what BMXers do over the weekend and then just go back to keto. Just a good balance.
Okay.
You know, as soon as you get in the car on the way home, make that your last one.
Well, I was also going to say on the subject of BMX, who would be the person you'd want to race against if you could choose anybody? But you already had a pretty serious lineup when you were out there.
Well, as a young guy, yeah. Wow, I did race him. It was Lawan Cunningham. Later, when I figured out who Todd was, I was like, man, it was good to be on the line with him. Yeah, man, I can't beat it. Brian Foster, really?
Do you think you can give Renato Silva?
Oh man, yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay, you hit it. Okay, you hit it right there. If he sees this, it'd be funny because we've never spoken, but I was headed in that direction. I knew I was going to have to see him. I knew I was going to have to see him. And I was prepared for him. I was preparing for him. Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
His skill set was well beyond mine, and I understood his experience in the game was well beyond mine. So it would have been a pleasure to put some work in on him or with him. Because he's earned it, but that's how I set my benchmarks and know where I was at. Because the guys who actually hadn't stopped racing that I was beating, I thought, wow, that feels pretty good. No disrespect, but I ain't missed anything. You know what I mean? It's like I've been here the whole time. Right. But not that case. Right. I would have had to put in some work. Him and Jeremy Thompson, which is in the same class.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought about coming back at 50 plus. You got Eric Sweets and the crew out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that they shook it up now? So it's not just 51 over.
No, what's up? What?
Shannon.
Yeah. So they added a few classes in between.
What?
So now it's 50. It's 51 to 55.
Really?
56 to 60, and then 61 and up.
Oh, so 51 to 55. Ooh. So that makes it a little bit better. Yeah, but you gotta get Roop out of that 50 something, man. You gotta get him moving on. No,
so is he on the high? Is he on the higher end of that group now?
Yeah,
is he? All right, cool.
He goes 55, man. He probably but he's fast. He's still fast, like 46, 55.
I know.
But I watched this Grands this year, man, and my girl, we check it out, and she's like, I swear you can win that. And I think I could. I really believe I was on my way to being top 3 NAG. Resources and risk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had to really look at that.
Right.
Once again, I like to run, man, and I don't want a 13-year-old, 14, 15-year-old kid outrunning me yet. And it took that away from me. It didn't take it away from me. I made a choice, and I took a gamble. And the payoff is way better than the gamble I took. But I needed to know
Of
when to
course.
pull back from the table. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And my current skill set just doesn't match the guys who are out there. So I was on a wing and a prayer almost in a sense, because I'm hauling when I wrecked and I looked, you know, and they put me back on my bike because my ankle was broken. I had to use the bike to roll me over to my car. I was in a clinic. It was after class. And my speedometer was it was 27.9 or something. I mean, I was almost 28 miles. I was wide open, you know, clipped the first jump, and I had flats on, and I put my foot down so I wouldn't land on my head first, and it just broke it, you know. So, and they always say, you mean, slow it down, you know, just, man, even right now, man, there is no such thing as me getting in the first straight and not giving that joint 135%. It ain't even happening, man. You know what I mean? So I had to think about it,
Right.
just like I had a CBR, Honda back in the day. You know, a bike, you know,
Yeah.
motorcycle.
Dirt
Right.
bike.
Right. No, street bike. And
Oh, sorry.
every time I got on that thing, I hit it, you know, I just got into it every time. And I realized I couldn't even ride it without wanting to do that. So I had to get rid of it because of it. So like BMX, you know, I'm not really moderate with it, you know. So I go, and when I go before practice, and when practice comes around, I might get a few gates, but I don't even let them take me there yet. You know, take me to you know, and I let them know. And it sounds like a punk show, but man, y'all know I'm not you know, I'm not even out here for that. But so I enjoy the jumps and doing everything, but I can't compete
Right.
because
Right.
that's when. And I don't like to lose. So if I do say I'm competing, I'm going to train. If I'm training, I'm going to put it down on the track, period. I mean,
Right.
like, why, you know, and so, yeah. So I'd rather help, you know, my man Shannon
Of course. Of course.
put the work in, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, I get just as much out of that, you know. But
Like
I,
watching me get
Right.
tore up.
oh, well, you know, I mean, and, you know, it doesn't already work. I mean, everybody's going to make their own decision that even if you decide
No
to
doubt.
put your helmet up for a minute, somebody else is going to keep doing it. So it's just a season, you know, for all of us. So if I'm in on that season, you know, hey, you won't feel like you shouldn't be doing it through me, because when I was doing it, it was my season. I mean, I'm doing it. You know, I knew that could happen. I gave myself 2 concussions. I didn't have concussions, but I said, I'll take 2 of them. You know,
Right.
I'm going after the second. My kid playing football, you can have 2. And we really gonna have to talk about it at first. But yeah, I knew he was gonna get 1, you know, and he didn't.
Right.
But, you know, if he played long enough, he would have.
And
So I
set the
had to think
boundaries.
about that, and, you know, just a few other things. I just didn't promote it and publicize it. I didn't want to, you know, put the fear in people, because, you know, you don't want to do that. But no, I had to really think
Right.
about it. So I just
Right.
gracefully explained that I really enjoy what I'm doing, and, you know, you guys know, you know, Coach need his legs, and, you know, we get hurt in BMX, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's guys who lay
Yeah.
bricks that need their legs. So I'm not saying I'm, you know, like some special gifted surgeon, and if I break a finger, I can't do brain surgery. I'm just saying, I mean, I wake up feeling 40, and by the time I do my mobility and warm up, I feel 20 something. And I just don't want to lose that. You know what I mean? And I think I'm being blessed
Right.
to have the joints to still do it, and to be able to represent the way I'm representing. I want to hang on to it the best I can. So so I feel like I had a responsibility, you know, to the people that I plan to lead and inspire to do some things that I'm doing in the future. And if I'm all banged up, I can't do it. And although other people do benefit from me racing a bike, far more benefit from me staying off a damn bike. I mean, out of that fast lane wanting to be nag 1. Now, and some cats,
Right.
cats who are doing it, they have less risk because they've been doing it longer and their skill sets are higher. So,
Right.
So I recognized that, and I thought, you're probably not going to get hurt. You know what I mean? Like Bramer, he's going to be fine. You know what I mean? He's been riding for years. You know, he got it. You know, he has had all racing experience, not just track experience, but race experience. Bro was there for 3 years, tore my leg up, came back 4th year. That's the 4th year. Put a cat 4th year on the track as an expert. He generally is not doing as well as I did if he had 4 years in a row. So, you know what I'm saying? So I felt thankful, and I thought that was a heck of a run. Like I said, recorded the whole thing, did a vlog that actually, you could go check the vlog out at my channel. If it's up. and had a playlist of all the experiences from day one. So I put it in a playlist, and
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
and it was cool. It was cool. Yeah, from
So, okay. Wrapping it up, if people wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
through Facebook for sure.
Okay.
But I could, I mean, I would provide my number too. But if you look at Facebook, Eric Williams, it's Coach E, Eric Williams. Definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. I really want to, because
Indeed, yes.
yeah, well, you guys inspired the idea about the body-based BMX for men over 40. Because I was talking to my lady, I was like, it'd be really cool because I'm doing all this, body, calisthenics and stuff, and I'm posting stuff. You see it on Facebook and my YouTube channel is growing and all. And I thought, man, what can I do for my boys? And I thought, do this. This is what you were doing. Like, just package it for them. Just make sure that, they don't waste no time doing anything they don't need to do that better.
Right.
And, looking good and performing, they can go hand in hand. But at some point, you might want to, decide, because if you want to perform, we're going to have to jump. You know what I mean? If you want to look good, you don't have to jump nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, not jump on a bike. I mean, like, plyometrics. Like, if you want to actually go fast, I mean, yeah, you might have to jump a jump, but I'm saying we're going to need to do plyometric jumps. I'm going to have to get you over some hurdles, on some box jumps. You see what I mean? We're going to put a vest on you. You're going to give me 10 big ones. You're going to take 10 seconds. We're going to do that again. That kind of stuff. You see? If you just want to look good, we don't have to do all that. So there's a difference, but BMX, they have to perform. And so they're missing certain aspects. So forget the looking good, because you'll look athletic, and that's probably the coolest look that you'd have anyway, right? So at the end of the day, let's actually be about it, and you'll look about what you be about. And that's how I train cats. So I just put cats through exactly the same process, but we modify it. So if you got 30 minutes, 3 days a week, I mean, that's really what we have. Let's keep it real. Most cats, right?
Right.
So we start right there. That's it. Just start right there. And then generally put them on some core training and some balance in the beginning. And when they say they want more, I get them to start doing a little jumping. You say you want more? Okay, now let's put on some force. You see? I do it in that order. Flexibility, mobility, the jumping, or faster movements. Now, you can't get a guy to just jump with bad knees. Old guy, I'm saying he would do faster reps, faster squats. You see? And then over time, with the speed, the body develops the ability to say, oh, I can jump and land because I can activate and quickly. So when I land, I can decelerate quickly because I can activate these muscles quickly. Then the joints aren't taking the pressure. And then the dude up here is like, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do that. The next thing you know, you swinging on something at 50 and your body doesn't know how old it is. You see what I mean?
Thanks.
Yeah, my body doesn't know how old it is.
I love it.
Right. Yeah. Word.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, bring me back on, man. Give me some time to put this thing together. I would love to come back on, and maybe we can.
I would definitely love to have you back.
Yeah, we can market and let them know, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about. Tune in. Maybe we can do something live. Answer some questions and.
Yeah, Shannon's about that. He's ready to flip the switch and do a couple of live shows.
Oh, really? Well, I watched them and I thought, I was like, yeah, these guys are on to something. And I was like, and I just told my lady, I said, I'd love to help them build and grind. And I appreciate you guys considering me such early in the stage of things, because you're going to have great people, on the show and talked about some really awesome things, some things I can't even touch. But it's cool that you let me put my hands on the thing I can touch,
Yeah. I mean, and that's what we were thinking about. We were just like, you know what? We saw that you were putting something together for over 40.
Right.
And I was like, and you have a BMX background. I'm like, we got to interview him.
That's awesome. I appreciate
this
it.
Is gonna go hand in hand.
Awesome.
So again, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time on there.
Yeah, man. Good to connect with you too. Do you go by Benny Foxmore or Shannon Polk? What's up?
Either one, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed you being on the line. Ever and I already connected, but we hadn't, and it's been a pleasure. Funny cat, man. Real dude, just like hometown. Everybody feels good right here. So I really appreciate it. This is gonna go far, man. Y'all got great energy on this thing, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, man. All love.
All right, brother. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye.